I'm not sure why I remember that night so clearly, down to the stupid details that shouldn't matter. The hum of the fridge, the way the clock on my phone glowed too bright in the dark. The thought that if I fell asleep right that second, I'd get 5 hours and change, which felt like a personal insult more than a calculation. You know how it is when you can't sleep. Your body's tired, heavy, already annoyed at tomorrow, but your head keeps rummaging through junk like it's killing time in a stranger's attic. Half-remembered songs from when you were 16, faces you haven't seen in years, things you said wrong once and apparently need to rehearse forever. I closed my eyes, opened them again, checked the time, did the math again like it might change. It didn't. I tried counting, got lost somewhere in the 60s because suddenly I was thinking about a song I used to hate and still somehow knew all the words to. I swore quietly at the ceiling. At some point, I gave up pretending sleep was going to happen on its own and grabbed my phone. If I was going to be awake, I might as well talk to someone. Problem was, I don't really talk to people much anymore. Work does that to you. By the time you shut the laptop, your social battery is already blinking red. There was exactly one person online, my old friend Mark. I messaged him, mostly to complain, asked why he was up so late too. He replied with a voice message, loud and cheerful in a way that felt illegal at that hour. He said they dragged him out to some bar last minute, somewhere outside town. There was music in the background, laughter, glasses clinking. He sent a photo after, him with a bunch of people I didn't recognize, all leaning too close to the camera mid-smile. That used to be me, or at least I tell myself it was. He invited me to come out, wrote that it'd be good to see me, that it had been a while. I sent back a voice message so he could hear how exhausted I sounded. Told him it was a work night, that I hadn't slept, that I'd probably collapse on the dance floor and die. Someone near him, some woman I didn't catch his name, yelled that I should drink hot milk if I couldn't sleep. I snorted at that. But when we hung up, the idea stuck. I remembered there was a bit of milk left in the fridge, probably just enough for one mug. I heated it in the microwave, overshot it, had to sip carefully like an idiot so I wouldn't burn my tongue. I stood by the kitchen window while I drank it. Outside, everything was dead quiet. No wind, no cars passing. The courtyard looked like a paused video. The same bench, the same empty trash can. All the apartment windows dark, like the whole building had decided to sleep at once. That's when I noticed the carousel. I'm still not sure how I missed it before. It stood beyond the sidewalk, on a patch of bare ground that always looked temporary, like no one had decided what to do with it yet. Old, painted yellow once, now more like a sick, faded version of yellow. No plastic, no bright colors, just metal and wood. From above, it looked almost like a crooked cross. The seats were wooden planks, worn smooth. The metal handles were polished where countless hands must have grabbed them. It didn't belong there. The actual playground was on the other side of the yard, newer, safer, with rubber ground and cheerful slides. This thing looked like it had been forgotten or left behind on purpose. I caught myself thinking that if someone really spun it hard and fell off, they could die. Those old carousels were brutal. I remembered scraped knees, elbows, the time I got smacked in the head by a swing and pretended I was fine because crying felt worse. Why haven't they removed it? The thought drifted off, slow and warm, like the milk finally doing its job. I finished the mug, rinsed it, went to bed. I slept. The alarm felt like a mistake. 8 a.m. already. My body protested, but I dragged myself up, showered, got dressed, shoved myself out the door. Halfway to work, the image of that yellow carousel popped into my head for no reason at all. At lunch, I decided to check if it was really there. I walked out into the yard, stood by the sidewalk, stared at the patch of ground. Nothing. No carousel, no metal base, no scuffed dirt where it should have been. Just the same empty lot I'd seen 100 times before. I turned slowly, lined up my view with where my kitchen window would be. I was standing in the exact spot. Had they removed it overnight? That made no sense. Or had I dreamed it? That made a bit more sense given how tired I'd been. I didn't have time to stand there arguing with myself. Work was work. By the time I got home that evening, the whole thing felt thinner, less solid. Just another weird half-dream your brain throws at you when you're exhausted. Until I saw the empty mug on the windowsill, right where I'd left it. I remembered standing there, remembered the silence, remembered the carousel's chipped paint. The memory felt real enough to be annoying. Still, I told myself I didn't care, as long as I slept that night. I watched an episode of a dumb nostalgic show in bed, something about a band I loved as a kid. Let the familiarity wash over me. Turned toward the wall, closed my eyes. That's when I heard it. A sound so light it barely existed. A thin scrape, like something brushing metal the wrong way. It hooked my attention before I could decide whether it mattered. I listened. There it was again. Metal against metal. Dry, unlubricated, like an old bike wheel, like swings that haven't been used in years. The playground was far from my windows. This sounded close. I sat up, heart already doing that annoying thing where it speeds up before you've agreed anything is wrong. I looked out the bedroom window. Nothing. The empty lot. Dead grass. No carousel. The sound came again, a little louder this time, wrongly rhythmic. I had a stupid thought then, one of those thoughts you get that you don't want to admit you had. What if I looked from the kitchen? Same side of the building, but a better angle on the yard. I got up and walked down the short hallway, feeling ridiculous for being nervous, flicked on the kitchen light, looked out the window. The carousel was there. Yellow, old, real. Each scrape matched its movement. It was rotating slightly, back and forth, like something was testing it. The wood was cracked, the paint flaked, the handles shone dull silver. I turned off the light to kill the reflections on the glass, leaned closer. It felt wrong in a way that's hard to describe. Not dramatic wrong, just misplaced, like furniture in the wrong house. I reached for the window handle without really thinking about it. As soon as I cracked the window open, the night air rushed in, cold and sharp, and the carousel vanished. The sound cut off like someone had hit mute. I stood there, breathing fog onto the glass, feeling stupid and shaky. I messaged Mark immediately, skipping any greeting, dumped the whole thing on him in one long, rambling text. Hallucinations, no sleep, carousel appearing and disappearing. He replied fast. Said it sounded like a campfire story. Then said more seriously that he'd had stuff like that happen when he was overtired. Hearing his name called, seeing things overlap with reality. Told me about once after being awake too long when he thought he was sitting at a computer in the back of a taxi and tried to type on an invisible keyboard while the driver stared at him like he was insane. "Your brain's fried," he wrote. "Get some sleep." It made sense. Too much sense. I agreed with him, put the phone down, and slept hard. The next day was better, clearer. Work didn't feel like it was happening underwater. Even the usual office doom talk about automation and being replaced slid right past me. That night was Friday. I went home instead of out, decided to fix my sleep schedule like an adult. Went to bed early. I fell asleep almost immediately. The sound dragged me out of it. This time it wasn't subtle. The scraping was loud, aggressive, layered with something else. Footsteps, heavy, wet thumps against dirt. The carousel wasn't being nudged, it was being ridden. I covered my ears. The noise dulled but didn't stop. When I pulled my hands away, it surged back, insistent, like it knew. I looked out the kitchen window. The carousel was there again, and it wasn't empty. Something was on it. Not a child, not an adult, something proportioned wrong. Its head was enormous, bulbous like a pumpkin stretched too tight. Its face sagged around it, features misplaced, eyes angled oddly, darting as it spun. Its lips were thick, wet, pulled into a lazy, satisfied grin. It wore clothes like a scarecrow had dressed itself in a hurry. A shirt with a long, sharp collar, pants yanked up too high, old shoes with buckles kicking up dirt as it pushed off the ground. It clutched the handles and spun, faster and faster, the metal screaming under the strain. I could hear its breath now, a pleased animal sound. I knew, absolutely knew, that if I opened the window, it would disappear. I couldn't move. The thought of drawing its attention felt worse than the noise, like a game where the rules were obvious and unforgiving. I yanked the curtains shut instead and backed away, put in headphones, played something calm, wordless, buried my head under a pillow. The sound pushed through anyway. Night after night, it came back, louder, faster, mocking. I stopped sleeping properly. I stopped thinking clearly. The anger started to outweigh the fear. One night, I snapped. I marched to the kitchen, jaw clenched, telling myself it was all nonsense, hallucinations, stress. I grabbed the window handle hard enough to make my hand ache. The thing saw me. It slammed its foot down, stopping the carousel dead. Looked up. Its expression changed. The stupid grin collapsed into panic. Its eyes locked on mine, wide and shaking. It was afraid. That startled me more than anything else. I yanked the window open. It vanished. The silence afterward was heavy, ringing. I stood there, breathing hard, feeling like I'd won something I didn't understand. The next night, the sound returned, but different, slower, careful, no laughter, no stomping. I looked. The carousel was there. The body was on it, headless. Blood poured from the rough stump of its neck, soaking the clothes, dripping into the dirt. The carousel creaked under the weight, turning lazily, unattended. Then it stopped, for good. The nights went quiet after that, too quiet. I couldn't sleep anyway. My thoughts chewed at me. I went outside with a flashlight, poked around the empty lot, kicked at the soil, found metal buried there, part of a base, proof that something had once stood there. That should have comforted me. It didn't. I looked up at my apartment. Someone was in the kitchen. Something worse than the thing on the carousel. Its eyes burned with cold amusement. In its hands, it held the severed head like a prize. I didn't go back inside. I called Mark. He let me stay. He listened. He didn't laugh. He asked one question that I still think about. What if what you saw wasn't happening now? The neighbors filled in the rest. Stories from the late 80s. A man with a huge head and a child's mind. A carousel. Nighttime. Complaints. A body found spinning, head gone. No one remembered who lived in my apartment back then. The records were empty. I'm moving out. I don't look out the window after midnight anymore. I don't.